Hey guys, this is What If Tatsumi from Agami Got Kill was the Ghost Rider Part 2. Now, last time I left off after I got a little cliffhanger introducing a demon, a certain dark-hearted demon. If you guys know the lore behind Ghost Rider, you know who I'm talking about. He'll be like a very equivocal character, a big turning point character for the, I guess, timeline or the story in this universe. But all I gotta say is we're gonna be really focusing on Tatsume's character and his dialogue and his emotions and basically his relationships with everybody else on Team Night Raid. Now we start off this episode with Tatsume basically, him waking up after being taken by Night Raid, and him also burying his two friends.
Damn, that's sad.
Buried, and Tatsume is kneeling near their burial sites and praying and rethinking and reminiscing about old childhood dreams, aspiration, and thoughts, and also memories about how they're gonna go to the capital, get rich, and save their village from starvation. But it didn't turn out that way, as Tatsume kind of just was discouraged by this. But we see that he gets interrupted by Leon, I think her name is, or the Lion Girl, dropping her big fat juicy guns on his forehead. I mean, like, bro, what the heck? Tatsume gets up and is confused and tells her, "Why did you sneak up on me like that?" She says, "Well, right now you seem pretty normal." But as we see a closer pan over to her as she's ready to go, like her claws are out and she's ready to kill Tatsumi at any point if she sees any fire or bone show or anything like that, because most of Night Raid is kind of scared of Tatsumi, and they did kind of strip him to see if he had an imperial arm or something, or some sort of marks on his body, like it was an imperial arm you ingest, or an imperial arm that's engraved in your body, like some sort of pendant or some sort of necklace that's engraved in his chest or something like that. What would happen is Tatsumi gets escorted by Alane to Night Raid headquarters. She introduces Tatsumi to everybody. Eventually the boss shows up and she gets a little rundown of what happened while she was gone. She talks to Tatsumi and tells him more about everything about Night Raid, and about how Night Raid is a rebel group against the unjust, corrupt political, economic status of the capital, and how so many countries, so many villages and towns are going bankrupt, poor, or starving because of the corruptness of the capital. So pretty much a lot of poverty and a lot of slavery, just a lot of bad things that shouldn't be happening in an economy is happening on a regular basis. It is some crazy stuff, worse than the medieval era. So what's happening is, Tatsumi is kind of just interested by what they're saying. Basically saying that they are a specific group targeted or given the task to target specific, targets that are pretty much the headliners or the head stepper ups for Pacific labors or Pacific actions happening in the capital, like assassinations of people that have a high economic status in the capital, or people that have contacts to other people that are even more corrupt that could soon and later give more power to the capital and stuff like that. And Tatsumi does bring up the fact that you just keep on killing the bad people in the capital, eventually you'll just start replacing them, and eventually it won't really make a difference. But they say that they are a smaller part of a bigger organization, and we are mainly more of the last resort type group, more for assassinations and precise hits on specific targets. Tatsumi is confused, but he slowly starts to lock in. But he does ask, "Can I not join?" As she does state the whole thing about how they won't kill him, but actually, scratch that, they would kill him. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. In this continuity, since they saw and they did tell the boss about how he had some sort of power that allowed him to basically go crazy and literally judge somebody off of their soul or burn someone down to their absolute like core. As Akame did do a little bit of autopsy or something on the girl that Tatsumi burned to a crisp, or her soul at least. Her whole entire inner body, like her intestines and stuff like that, everything, the muscle below, everything, her bones were charred, like they were black. Her organs were all disintegrated like dust, and most of her fat in her body was liquefied. So it was very crazy to see everything inside of the girl, because everything inside from the muscle from the muscle, everything besides the muscle and skin was completely burnt or melted or disintegrated inside the body. And her brain was also liquefied as well, so it was crazy. But what happened is Tatsumi is kind of given a ultimatum. Now, Tatsumi eventually does decide to join Night Raid, as they do understand, yes, a pretty good amount of fighting skills besides having his Ghost Rider ability. Now, they do introduce the whole entire backstory of, well, Imperial Arms, and do ask him if he has one. Tatsumi says that he doesn't have one, and he kind of just tells him his story about how he made a deal with some sort of masked man, or a man dressed in all black when he was younger, that gave his father, well, got his father's sickness away, but his father died shortly after that deal. Tatsumi believes that he's the devil, and we see that Bulak kind of becomes quiet, and also Akame as well. Akame and Bulak, later on, we'll find out how they know about the whole supernatural world and about demons and all that other stuff later on in the series, later on in the fanfiction. But yeah, so like, if you guys want me to introduce other supernatural, like, I guess Marvel type plot points like vampires and maybe even werewolves, because I think there are werewolves in the Marvel universe, or want me to introduce characters like Swamp Thing, or characters like, I can't remember, it's another Ghost Rider related character besides multiple other characters. I think it was Spike, like the, I guess, opposite of Ghost Rider or something along those lines. But what happened is Tatsumi kind of just starts to talk around. Eventually, him getting introduced to everybody one-on-one this time, and also being told the whole backstory about how everybody in here is destined for judgment one day, and that it doesn't matter how you look at it, Tatsumi, we're all still killers, we're all still murderers. We're just doing it for a reason. As Tatsumi kind of just gets discouraged a little bit, but he still does, like I said earlier, decide eventually in the end to join Night Raid. And after this decision, we see that we get switched away from Night Raid's base to some sort of desolate area in the wintertime. We would see a man in all black, but he would look younger. He would look more around Tatsume's age. He would look more like Tatsume's best friend. I don't remember his name, but if you've seen Akame got killed, for the picture up, he would look like Tatsume's friend, but a little bit slightly older, around like 2 years maybe older than Tatsume's age, and he would have a little bit of a goatee and longer hair, kind of like Loki from the MCU. So what would happen is he would be making his way through, well, the snow. He would be near Antarctica or near a snowy, desolate area, eventually coming across a blue-haired woman. As she would have looked towards him, and he would have, well, proposed a deal. As we get switched away from that story, a little cliffhanger for maybe part 3, part 4. So we get switched back to Night Raid, to the main juice of the story. After he makes this decision, we see that Tatsumi gets paired up with Akame for his first trainer partner. Akame takes him straight to the kitchen as he starts cooking. Get to work, buddy. So he starts to cook and just starts peeling fruits and literally starts serving these people like a Haitian slave. I mean, bro is working his back out. Pause! We see how Akame does proceed to just start sampling the food. I mean, just munching away. Big bag activity, worse than Rod Wave. She kept it down the cup. Nah. Tatsume proceeds to get a little bit pissed off as your mind, same, proceeds to literally egg him on and basically saying that it's going to take you thousands of years to even get what we do through your head. As she walks off, as Tatsume says, "You don't even know I might live 1,000 years." As he just smiles, as pretty much mind looks over at him and says, "I don't think you know how bad that actually is." And she walks away. As Bulat does think to himself how bad or how lonely it would be to be immortal, to have pretty much half of everybody you knew now by the time you're, let's say, 60, 70, you'll still look the same age, but everybody you knew maybe like 60, 40, 70 years ago are all dead. So it's kind of a hard reality to face because let's keep it a buck. I'm pretty sure immortality. I'm getting off topic, but immortality is a cool little power, especially if like you're immortal in the type of way that Deadpool is. Like you can regenerate and like you're constantly in a state of healing. So I feel like that would be cool. But if you're immortal in the way that you can never age to death, then the more unlikely scenarios that will happen for your, well, let's just say by force demise will start to happen. Because let's be real, if you go 5,000 years without dying from something like a disease, a sickness, or even health or anything like that, or medical problems or biological problems, eventually the more unlikely things like a car crash, an arrow going through your head, a lightning strike, a car just ramming you over, not even a car just ramming you over on the sidewalk. Like the more unlikely scenarios of you dying will start to happen. You trip and fall and break your neck. Like stuff like that will start to happen because eventually it's like a 1 in a million chance, and then eventually it becomes a 15 in a 70% chance over the course of a few decades. So I don't know, but we see that Tatsume goes to basically fish with Akame. He does get a little flustered after Akame starts to take off her clothes, but eventually he gets, well, relieved after Akame is shown to have a swimming suit underneath her outfit. She says that they're going to be catching fish, but the fish they're catching are very rare and also incredibly hard to catch. And she's telling him to catch it barehanded. So she jumps into the water as Akame basically grabs a fish and starts to just farm it. As she tells Tatsumi to try. As Tatsumi says, "Wait, what do you mean?" As Tatsumi's in his trunks or his underwear or whatever, and Akame says, "Try it." As she pushes him into the water backwards as Akame falls, or not Akame, but Tatsumi falls into the water. Tatsumi falls headfirst in the water and his body starts to erupt into flames. Tatsumi is in a dark area of the pool as his skin starts to boil and the water around him starts to bubble up. Eventually, Tatsumi's skeletal form showing. Tatsumi starts to crawl the bottom of the sea floor and starts to boil the water intensely, eventually, well, basically burning the oxygen in the water just enough to start to incapacitate half of the fish or most of the fish in the water. Eventually, him turning it off and grabbing each of the fish and walking out with around 10 to 17 fish as he dumps them all in the bucket they took down here. And Akame is kind of impressed by his quick thinking. Akame asks him, "Do you know how to control it? Like turn it off and on like a muscle?" As Tatsumi says he's had it for years since he was a kid, or he had the curse, I guess, but he was never able to really connect with it. He was able to turn it off and on, but it's always glimpses where he can't control it. At times, there's like a 50-50 chance he can turn into what he turns into and can actually control what he does to a certain extent. Give him a one task, and he proceeds to do that task. But anything special, anything extra, besides protecting himself and doing that task, becomes more or less impossible. But unless I give it full control, and when I do, bad things happen. As we get a quick little flashback to Tatsume, or the Ghost Rider, going on a little bit of a massacre, but we're going to be focusing a little bit more on Tatsume's darker past with the Rider later on. So we can switch back to the main story with Tatsumi and Akame heading back to the hideout, or the base. But after that, we see that they get back to the house, and eventually we get switched to the team also talking about a new mission, or two pretty much targets: Gamal, the oil merchant, and Ogre. So Ogre and Gamal, the oil merchant, we see that they're given these two tasks, and they kind of give, well, Tatsumi the task to do this. They say Tatsumi does have a lot of potential, and they want to see his strength. So they pit him toe to toe against Ogre and see what he can do. So they put him in the field and they set him on his way. Now Tatsumi does set on his way, but when he's getting suited up, he goes out in the basement area of the base and finds an old suitcase, or old, I guess, covered with old gear from prior members of Night Raid. Eventually he looks closer into it and finds a cool leather suit and puts it on. And his leather suit is basically kind of a leather version of his original suit, like the suit he has on, but instead of the sweater is a leather jacket with spikes on the side and leather gloves with spikes on the knuckles. So basically a brass built into the gloves. So he has pretty much a motorcycle, or a leather jacket, leather gloves, and pretty much, I guess, combat boots, or like a black version of his brown pants he has, and basically somehow for plot, I don't know, a black version of his brown boots, but they're like a leatherish like boot, like they're leather basically. So what happened is Tatsumi likes the fit, and they actually do like it as well. It suits him. So Tatsumi, and somehow, I don't know, Tatsumi was drawn to it for some reason. But we see that Tatsumi walks off with his new suit and dons it and goes out into the town. He puts a cloak over himself to disguise himself, and he asks Ogre out in the back because he disguises himself as a huge fan. Ogre says, "I don't have a lot of time here, kid," as pretty much Tatsumi says, "Me neither," as he goes straight for a kill and starts to slice at Ogre. Ogre starts to dodge and weave as he pretty much sucker punched the absolute snot out of Tatsumi. Tatsumi gets sent flying, but uses some sort of ability that he picked up a few hours prior that he hasn't really completely mastered. He takes out a mini chain that he grabbed in the case from earlier with the suit, as it's more or less kind of a, the chains you have on your wallet, kind of like a small chain like that, and he uses it and throws it as it ignites into hell flame and burns a huge scar or chain like scar or pattern on Ogre's face. Ogre is temporarily blind for a few minutes or a few seconds as Tatsumi lands back on the ground and cuts Ogre's left arm clean off. He pushes Ogre down to the ground with a huge heavy kick as Ogre gets back up and throws a few pieces of shards at him. Tatsumi dodges it, but one of them hit him upside the head. But before it kills him, the rider comes out, disintegrating the blade before it even touches his skull, as his suit is basically, illuminating, and his skull form is unlocked. The rider is out. Now it's nighttime, so Tatsumi doesn't have full control over the rider, because the rider, I guess, kind of like Tokiyami or Takayami, I don't remember the name, but the Shadow Court guy from My Hero, the Ghost Rider, as you know, also from, I think from the comics and also from the Ghost Rider film. Ghost Rider seems to be a lot stronger in nighttime. So what happens is Tatsumi's control over the Ghost Rider is kind of lacking right here. But the Ghost Rider does use its strength and also the combat skill Tatsumi has and combines it. Imagine the Ghost Rider with martial arts. Like, that would be insane. Like, for real. But we see that, actually, it does happen because there is a Ghost Rider, a samurai Ghost Rider in the past, but enough of that. So we see that Tatsumi starts to go crazy, or, the Ghost Rider starts to go crazy. Ghost Rider starts to weave and dodge and throws in a few jabs and punches, starting to burn away Ogre's flesh and armor. Eventually, Ogre has enough of this and is about to scream out, and basically is becoming a lot more commotion than Tatsume needed it to be. So the Ghost Rider tries to finish this off, knowing that Ogre is a horrible man at heart and knowing that he needs judgment. So Ghost Rider kicks Ogre's kneecaps in, grabbing his mouth, and starts to char his tongue off. Basically, well, not basically, but essentially making him mute. He grabs Ogre's neck and kind of like Dr. Sulfur, or Dr. Solifar or whatever from Creature Commandos or from DC Comics, he starts to literally burn his neck down as he looks into his eyes and starts to judge him, giving him the pin stare, and starts to burn his sins into his soul. Eventually, he would die, and we would see that Ogre would have been left there on the ground. Eventually, Tatsume, looking back at him and using a little bit of his power to disintegrate his body, as he would leave nothing but rubble and a stone-shaped piece of his face left there. With this happening, this will cause a chain of events that will lead the capital into searching for somebody with fire-type abilities or some sort of ability that related with turning things into stone. So the Ghost Rider isn't completely a suspect number one just yet, since no one's been doing sightings of a man dressed in black leather, covered in flames, looking like a skeleton. Nothing has happened. No witnesses or anything like that has happened yet. But we do see what witness that isn't a part of the capital, that is far more dangerous and far more brutal than most of the people in this universe. Most of the people in this world, in the living world at least. It will be a man dressed in all black, the younger man I was talking about earlier, that would have been walking the rooftop to rooftop watching Tatsumi. Eventually, Tatsumi would have stopped, looking up and seeing that the man was gone. But the Ghost Rider would have sensed his presence. Something was bubbling in this wind. Some sort of vengeance was near him, but something that he didn't know just yet. Tatsumi would have been walking off, eventually looking behind him, getting hit with a huge blast of black magic, or some sort of black dust type of energy, with small shards of purple lighting in it. Tatsumi would have been sent flying into a nearby carriage, killing about 2 bystanders as he would have gotten back up. He would have jumped over the cabin, setting it on fire, and grabbing the chain that was pretty much hooking the horses to the cabin, just for plot, because most cabins or most carriages didn't use chains, but he would have grabbed the chain underneath the carriage and would have started to empower it with his hell flames, as it would have looked like, well, Ghost Rider's OG chain. He would have lunged it towards this man in black, as he would have dodged swiftly, like literally would have dodged with so much finesse, as he would have shot a huge blast of black magic back at Tatsumi, as it would have froze the carriage behind him like it was some sort of opposite of his flames. He would have started to dodge and weave multiple of the attacks, eventually leading up to a lot of commotion happening. In a few minutes, a lot of people would have left their buildings watching this mess happen, as Tatsumi knew, or the Ghost Rider knew, that he had to work fast. Tatsumi, or the Ghost Rider, because right now at this point they're working together mentally and they're locked in. They're kind of working like a symbiotic host. Tatsumi jumping in and throwing his acrobatic and sword skills into the fight, as Ghost Rider would have taken out Tatsumi's blade and would have enchanted it with hell flames, having a flaming sword. He was started to dodge and weave, cutting at this man in all black, as the man would have started to phase through the blade. But as Tatsumi would have bumped up the heat, the blade would have started to actually cause damage to the man. The man would have looked pissed off, as he would have shot a huge blast of red energy into Tatsumi's chest, apparently distorting Tatsumi. Tatsumi would have fell into the ground, his hell flame starting to fade away and his Ghost Rider form starting to retreat in itself. Tatsumi being exposed. The man was about to finish it off, summoning a black crystal-like sword, and was about to give Tatsumi a finishing blow. And out of nowhere, Akami would have jumped in, throwing a huge finishing strike towards the man, as the man would have started to dodge out of the way, him being scared of Akami's blade for some reason. The man would have dodged and weaved, eventually disappearing into the dark of the shadows on the night, as Akami would have grabbed Tatsumi and scurried him out there. So I'm gonna leave it up here, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you guys like and subscribe, and as always, guys, have a blessed day and happy 2025.